Welcome back, everybody. This is ISA Insider News. My name is Max Tim, and of course, with us we have
Shayna Weber. Hello. Hi, Max.
What's happening? We had some movie adventures this week, right?
We did. I actually saw some things.
Yeah.
Pretty proud of myself.
I haven't seen a movie in forever, and I purposely watched one just for this episode. I should be watching more movies.
I went to the movie theater by myself at noon.
Wow, that's like the best.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Nobody is
Yes.
that. Well, how many people were there? It is a pretty big movie that you went and saw.
There was one weird thing before we get into it. I'll tell you okay. So it's one of those movie theaters that has like the couches that recline and stuff. And there was maybe 7 people in there for the screening, but behind me in the corner, when the reclining chairs was 2 people underneath some blankets. And it was a little bit weird, but I didn't want to look at them because I felt like in the dark, you're like, what are you doing back there? And then I was like, I don't want to know. I'm in the theme of nope. I was like, nope, I'm out of here.
Right. Maybe they were just trying to be cozy. Let's just assume the best.
I mean, I hope so. I don't care. I don't care what they were doing. More power to them. Go for it, kids.
Yeah. But you liked it. You really enjoyed it.
Yes. And I will get into it. I will not give any spoilers. There will be no information on this.
I have not seen Nope.
But I will talk about Jordan Peele, Mr. Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
But anyway, first, we have to get to our top headline this week from The Hollywood Reporter. Hollywood's mirage earnings season, fear that the worst isn't here yet. And I'm going to let Max take it away because it's just a lot of information.
This is one of those articles that I feel writers should try to read and soak in. It's all very Wall Street-y stuff. It's all like, quarterly earnings calls. If you don't know what those are, every major corporation that is traded publicly has a quarterly earnings call that is recorded. And this is how the industry receives information about their forecast of upcoming quarter. And then, of course, the report of the previous quarter. And it's a tracking of the company. Every single, publicly traded company has to do this. So that's a lot of the speak in this article. It's heavy. It's a little overwhelming. And after a while, I was just like, okay, I don't know. But it's interesting because the sub headline says summer blockbusters and streaming hits could obscure the economic pain of entertainment giants facing the rest of the year amid an advertising pullback, inflation drag, and supply chain issues. So this is a big deal because this whole inflation situation, the possibility of a recession coming on, it hits every industry, and the entertainment industry isn't any different. What we would like to focus on, because we can actually speak to this intelligently, relatively speaking, is just the pictures. It's the graph at the end of the article.
If there's a picture, we can comment. Let's go.
Yeah. So what did you think when you saw this graph, Shayna?
Well, I was actually surprised that Disney Plus was at the very top. I mean, I'm not surprised that they're at the top of this at this graph, but I was honestly kind of surprised that Stars was near the top, and also that Hulu was so far down at the bottom along with Netflix. The
Stars situation, it was recently bought out, and I think it's now moving into this like full acquisition. Yeah, Lionsgate purchased it, I believe, in 2016 for almost $4.5 billion. And there was a really interesting article at the end of June from CNBC saying Stars could turn into an acquisition machine after Lionsgate's purchase. But so I think that might be what is generating the movement for Stars. You're right.
Yeah, it's all speculative. It's all like, speculating of like, who's going to go what? Yeah.
There's a lot of politics that come into this. The companies can't necessarily lie. They have to say, this is what we generally and genuinely forecast. But, they might be changing things around a little bit. Obviously, you can't be illegal in terms of those forecast calls. But what's interesting about the graph is that its forecast for subscriber adds this year, that's all the red. And then it shows the total subscribers overall. And obviously, Netflix is still way ahead with 221 million subscribers. They're saying that for the next quarter, or I think it might even be the last half of the year, it says which streamer will gain the most subs in 2022. Some of this is a little strange, but 6.4 million for Netflix. And Shayna and I were chatting about this before, in comparison to Disney's 42.9 million forecasted new subscribers. it's like, how many more subscribers can Netflix really get? I mean,
Right.
I think that's a lot of what this is saying, but the ad revenue is going to be coming down. And acquisitions for certain projects is probably going to be coming down because of the idea of recession. But the interesting part is how many amazing shows Netflix has coming out in the fall.
So many great things.
Amazing show. We already
Not giving up my Netflix. I'm not giving it up.
No.
Okay, so based on this article, we want to know what your favorite streaming service is. Put it in the comments below. I will tell you my favorite streaming service probably right now is Disney Plus, because I have a kid.
Okay.
And I can find so many movies on there that I loved as a kid that I want him to watch. For example, we watched Jumanji this weekend.
Yeah.
Which is
that is key about Disney Plus. Like you pretty much, they own almost everything. And so you search for the name and it's there. It's probably one of my least watched streaming services.
Yeah. Well, you don't have a kid.
But yeah, I don't have a child. I will say, and it's funny that I think I'm a toss up between HBO Max or Discovery Plus. Discovery Plus, everybody, is $7 a month, and I don't work for them. I wasn't paid to promote them, but I feel like there's no reason not to pay $7 a month for Discovery Plus. They have virtually every reality show that you could think of, and it's a ton of fun. So I guess that's probably what I watch the most. I don't really watch Netflix that much until a new show's coming in.
Oh, I have to tell you one thing that happened in Nope, which what you just said about reality. It's not even a spoiler. It's nothing. But in a phone call, one of the characters is talking about a reality show, like trying to pitch something, like, and she goes, "It's reality," and the cinematographer's like, "Oh," and the guy's like, "Say documentary." She goes, "It's documentary," and he's like, "Oh, okay." I just thought that was funny.
I think that's a good segue. But again, everyone, we would love to know favorite or at least most watched streaming service is. Love to know that.
Yep.
For whatever reason. I love HBO Max because I think the interface is the best among all of them. But yeah, I think that's a good segue. Let's get into what we're watching. We have a lot of opinion.
We do. I saw Nope, which is the new Jordan Peele movie, and I loved it. It's weird, and I'm not going to tell you anything about plot because I think the best way to watch that movie, if you can, is to avoid anything. I went in completely blind. I had no idea. And I left different than when I went into the movie. And that for me is what films are all about. And it's not like a major change. I didn't come out like a totally changed person, but you leave feeling different than when you went in. And to me, that's what I love about Jordan Peele. And I will say this, I was thinking about why him, like why Get Out and Us and Nope are like resonating so well. And I think it's because for me personally, when I was younger, I would read every single book by Roald Dahl. Every single book. When I got older, it was Neil Gaiman. And for some reason, for me, these writers, these authors just opened up the world in a way and just made you like go into different fantasy places and places of your brain that hadn't been opened before. And that's what I think Jordan Peele does in the current film scape. He does that. He's unafraid to just take you to a place that is unfamiliar, but asks really big questions that you leave thinking about.
That is not.
So go see it.
It's not easy to do, man. That is so hard to do because there have been so many stories told, so many movies that we've seen. And for somebody to come along and do this now is a big deal. There's so many positive things about Jordan Peele. I have read some reviews on Nope that I'm not going to even reference here because I want everyone, like you're saying, to go in, fresh. I'm definitely going to see it because I know what some of the content is about and it's up my alley. But now I'm really curious about how it kind of opened your mind about something.
It's just cool. Like you're seeing things that you aren't expecting to see. There's familiar stuff. I mean, it's not like he's reinventing the wheel into some new thing, but it's like, it breaks you open a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's like when I read James and the Giant Peach, you're like, what?
Right.
And then there's like familiar themes in there, but it still bursts you open in kind of new, exciting, creative ways. Yeah. So it's very inspiring.
Imagination.
Imagination.
It's the exact opposite of how we feel about The Gray Man.
Exactly. So Gray Man is on Netflix.
I'll just
stars Ryan Gosling and Chris Klein and Anna de Armas and that Bridgerton guy, that guy, the hot one.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's Chris Evans.
Chris, what did I say?
Chris Klein.
It's not Chris Klein. Chris Evans, thank you. Let's do like a fun thing where like he said, then she said, because I want to know your perspective and then I want to tell you my perspective on Gray Man. I
mean, I will put a disclaimer out here, and as if some of you watch some of my kind of review reaction videos, which I need to do more of, but I'm usually trying to find the positive elements of things, right? And I am not a film critic. And at the same time, we're all critics and we have that freedom to be able to say what's on our mind. So I will say that I hated virtually every second of it. I thought it was just maddeningly, and I don't say that very often. Every coming scene was like, oh my God, they're going to do this. Oh, yep, let's get them on a boat. Okay, yeah, they're going to be walking around a fountain and somebody's got a hostage in his arms. It's the same thing. And I could just keep going on and on about complaining, but you know, what do you have to say about it? I feel bad saying such terrible things, but
I did watch the entire thing thinking, why am I still watching this? Okay, so for me, I had three, probably more than that, but three like main complaints. One, it felt absolutely derivative of every single other action movie with a hostage who's a girl. It's like there was hardly any, I'm not going to say none, but hardly any character
is close to zero
in there.
Yeah.
And it was obviously like plot wise, just self-indulgent explosion and fight scene after fight scene and like such a dude fest to me. Yeah. And also in that same dude fest, it felt like the female characters were just male characters that they put a female in.
Yeah.
There was no like female energy there. It was literally just like you plopped someone in.
I thought that Ana de Armas actually did a nice job for her role. Yeah. And that is such an interesting character. There was zero layer to her. It's like, why?
Yeah.
She's just here to save Ryan Gosling. And he had like one line where he's like, remind me next time of how, you know, my ego's hurt because I'm supposed to save you next time. And I was like, what?
And also Jessica Henwick, who plays the CIA person with Regé-Jean.
Yeah. She's kind of in charge. Yeah.
She's awesome. And also Julia Butters, who plays the hostage. They're awesome actresses. Right, and they're just wasted in
just a crappy, stupid story. So what I need to say though, is that I was like halfway through. I think there was a line of dialogue from that actress that you were referencing, she's kind of the CIA lead that oh gosh, I can't remember.
Jessica Henwick.
So she had a line about the worst and most botched covert op in history. And I'm like, that's your movie. I want to know about that. And all it is just one giant scene where a ridiculous amount of people come in and blow up Prague, basically. And I'm like,
and can't hit their target.
Never happen. It's just never happened. But all of the intrigue about that spy world of these people taken out of prison and then put into covert operations, that in and of itself is a world we haven't seen before. So relatively speaking, we kind of Jason Bourne did such a better job at that. But that's the thing about Jason Bourne. It was all about him not knowing who he was. So it was a constant search for identity. So it was purely character driven. And so
and I don't buy the reason why Ryan Gosling's characters does what he does.
Right.
I did not buy that backstory.
No.
I'm not going to talk about it, but yeah, I didn't buy it. It was just so flimsy.
It was just typical.
So flimsy. Yeah.
Everything was typical. And then to top it all off, The Gray Man is already set to have a sequel and a spinoff.
Well, it was made to be a franchise.
Yeah.
It was made, they left you hanging. They left all these things like floating for a reason. So I'm unsatisfied at the end because I know that you're waiting to go make a franchise out of this. I knew it.
It's just, it got 48% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes is 91%. And so, there's a lot you can take into that, like how many people are reviewing it on Rotten Tomatoes and things. But I think it goes to show that there is still room for an action piece like this. But at the same time, of course there is, because how many huge movies do we see on Netflix every year? Like 3. So of course everybody's.
This was the highest budget movie that Netflix has done at nearly $200 million.
Yeah.
And you can tell because they spent every penny of that on every single explosion in every location known to man. It's it's like an explosion fest.
Yeah. And the actors.
And just guns galore.
Yeah. It was, I won't say it was a waste of time, because it reminded me of how much more interested I personally am, and I think most people are, in character-driven projects. And character-driven doesn't have to be like, just power of the dog. It can be like the Adam Project was character-driven. And even though it was kind of cheesy and stereotypical at times, it was so much more enjoyable because it was this process of seeing characters work through things.
But even like The Bourne Identity has more character, and you're invested in that character. James Bond has been around forever. And he may not be a perfect human being in terms of like sexism and all the other issues, but he's an interesting character that you're invested in the character and what he's doing.
Yeah.
I wish they just spent a little bit more time on making us care about Ryan Gosling's character and not just be like, oh, it's Ryan Gosling, I care.
It was like these writers, which I looked them up. They're huge writers. And of course, the Russo brothers are huge directors. They're huge current writers. Like it felt like they pulled writers from the late 90s and said, write this action movie. It felt like it was just The Rock, but not nearly as entertaining.
Oh, I loved The Rock.
The Rock is so much fun. One. Yeah. Very male.
You care.
Yeah.
Because you care.
Yeah. Anyway, you all can form your own opinion. We both hated the movie, and I
didn't hate it. I disliked it. I didn't hate it.
I will speak for myself.
Yes.
I will speak for myself.
I'm no hater.
Moving on quickly to a tiny little segment, ISA events. We've mentioned this before, but I just wanted to note that you're probably watching this after I hosted my webinar on 9 Things Every Writer Needs. You can catch that recording on YouTube. If you're watching our show on YouTube, then you can find it on the ISA YouTube channel. If you're watching it on Pro Tips, just find the ISA on YouTube. We would love to see all the comments and any questions you have, you can post on there. But I also wanted to note that I am offering 50% off my Story Farm services through August 5th. It sounds like I'm going out of business or something, but I'm not. It's just because inflation's ridiculous. Writers need help and support. If you want to reach out to me, max@thestoryfarm.org. If you want to find out what my current pricing is, which is, I've never done 50% off.
That's amazing. That's like half off, people.
It is having. Yeah.
That's crazy.
This week in ISA Insider, what do we have here?
On the ISA articles page, the title is We Prefer Stories Relatable to Our World Today. It is an interview with Janet Jeffries, who is with Lawrence Bender Productions. She's the creative executive at Lawrence Bender. Janet Jeffries is an amazing human being. I've talked to her, and she's amazing. So this is a great article to check out and kind of like get into her brain.
They cover so many topics. How has the industry changed for writers since she started? How do you balance art and commerce in the industry? What attracts you to a screenwriter? What are some of the more unusual places you've sourced material? There's some really great questions here. What are some of the biggest misconceptions writers have in getting from script to screen? Please read the answer to that. Because too often, writers just aren't aware of the process that it takes. So this is a relatively short segment, but we just wanted to highlight that article because not only, like Shana says, Janet is awesome, but the questions and answers here are extremely helpful. So you should definitely check it out.
Check it out. And what she's saying is she likes projects that hook you in for character. And so I want to know what Janet Jeffries thinks about Gray Man.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. We prefer stories relatable to our world today. There's nothing about the Gray Man was relatable.
You know what's funny though? I read an article, and I'm going to find it. We can put it here, where the Russo brothers were talking about how it is relatable to the world today. They didn't give specifics, but they said that there's a lot of things in the movie that are really current and going on in the world today. And I was sitting there going, what? Like gun violence? Sure.
Yeah, right. And
but they didn't give specifics. And I was like, well, I wonder why.
I'm sure it's about espionage and secret co-op, or covert relations and things, but it's like, well, okay, but we don't know about those things because they're secret and covert. Also, I have no connection to that. I don't know what, we need character relatability here, Russo brothers. Just go ahead and write another Avengers movie. That was potentially me. Twitter time.
This was written, I believe, in a satirical way, but I'm taking that and sort of like going, but really, like, what should you be asking? Okay, so this is from @Saul Huntman, which I think is Paul Hunt on Twitter. It says, Screenwriters, next time you have a meeting with a producer, you may want to think about some questions to ask them. For example, why are you the person to produce this and why now? Obviously, as a writer, especially a newbie, these are not questions that you want to ask, even though we get asked this all the time as writers. Why are you the person to write this and why now? If you flip that on somebody who's at a higher level than you, it's probably going to be frowned upon. But what I'm taking from this is there are some things that you should question before you just say yes and sign an option or sign a sale. So my point from this is just to say, if you are offered an option or a sale, just please make sure you hire an entertainment lawyer who will take you through every single part of that contract. And if you feel brave enough to ask your producer what they want out of this before you get that option agreement, go for it. But I'm just saying, if you need a bad guy in the situation and you can't speak up, get a lawyer to work with their lawyer and hash it out that way. And just make sure that they're explaining everything to you, because there are things inside those option agreements that will kill a project if that producer does not make it. For example, there's a clause sometimes for turnaround. So make sure you look at that.
No, I think it's smart. You have to look at yourself and understand where you are in your career. If you have never had anything produced, it sounds horrible for me to say it this way, you don't have much or any power. Yes, you have power and control because you bring the material. And if they love the material and then maybe there's some kind of bidding war or something, then yeah, you're going to have more clout. But first of all, that doesn't happen very often. So try to, just get that out of your head. But also be aware of expectations in the industry. You have to be humble but intelligent about what's going on. Like if you are having a pitch meeting for a TV series, you're pitching your series, and the executive might ask, for lack of a better way of saying it, how do you expect to be involved in the project? I don't know if she would ask you literally that, but some form of attachment to it. You're probably going to just defer, and you could say, I would probably defer to the showrunner who comes on board, but I would like to have some kind of a co-creation, approach to the project. And because you're not going to be the showrunner of the show, you're just not. That is something you have to work up to. I think that's the best advice we can give on all of that. I will say it's kind of funny, on Paul Hunt's Twitter profile, he wrote, writer, 2.5 minutes of Welcome Strangers. And then he says, Disney Plus, Netflix, Paramount Plus, BritBox, Prime are some of the streamers I subscribe to.
That's amazing.
So a little shout out to Paul. It's a funny, good question to ask, because you shouldn't ask.
But you should be thinking it.
At least the approach. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, moving on to the final segment, good news of the week. Let's get to good news of the week. I thought this was pretty hysterical, even though it wasn't necessarily delivered in a comedic way. And it's funny that it's listed literally on Good News Network.
It's funny, but it's also just sort of sad.
Oof.
That we have to get to this place.
Yeah. TikTok creators have been banned from sacred sites in Nepal for being nuisances. And so there are literally signs up around these incredibly spiritual, holy Buddhist sites saying no TikTok zones. This is mind-blowing to me. The primary thought I have here, well, for one thing, it's good news. Leave the sites leave these Buddhist monks alone for one thing. But for you to be so annoying that you upset Nepalese Buddhist monks, there's something to say about how annoying you actually are if you're upsetting Buddhist monks.
This idea that you have to walk around with your phone and instead of looking at this beautiful place, and this kind of looks like I'm like looking at me, like look, you're looking through your phone. Yes, this body work. You're looking through your phone at it is like ridiculous. And the same, and funny that this article made me think about, there have been some artists who have banned cell phones from their concerts because they want you to pay attention to the concert and not be looking through your phone, little tiny screen on the person so you can show it on your social media. Enjoy the moment. If you're going to go to Nepal, enjoy Nepal.
You're in Nepal with definitely the most patient people on the planet. And even they're saying, leave.
Cut it out.
Crazy. They're not saying leave. They actually want to share these sites with you. So just experience them. I think it's good news that we should be trying to protect certain sites. And like you were saying, Shana, just experience the experience. You don't need to put it on social media. You just don't.
And good for them for putting those signs up and banning. Good for them.
Right.
Boundaries.
Yeah. Fist bump to the Buddhist monks.
Tell us your comments. Tell us what you want us to talk about. Tell us what you're watching. Tell us your favorite streaming service. Put some comments down there. We want to see what's going on with you.
If you like the Gray Man, you like the Gray Man. There's nothing wrong with that.
Fine.
I just will vehemently disagree with you.
Give us your argument in our comments.
Let us know.
I'd love to hear it.